Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Masters of Code, our series wherein we talk to technologists about technology and everything around it. I'm your host, Alok Soni, and I'm excited to welcome Vikalp Sahni today. Vikalp is founder and CEO of Eka Care. Before this, he was the CTO and co-founder of GoIbibo. And in between, he architected something which I'm pretty sure all of us have used. That's Arogya Setu app. Vikalp, really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Alok. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to some interesting time.
Great. So we're going to talk about health tech and then building health tech solutions in India. But before we start talking on the topic, I would like to ask you that what's happening in Eka Care and what really motivated you to do this, to take this plunge?
Yeah, no, so interesting journey, Alok. And as you briefly mentioned, I'm a tech guy. I like to call myself a developer. My regular day ends in pushing code to production, committing stuff on GitHub and all of that. And I really enjoy that. But by 2019, I thought of starting something new again. And at that point in time, I was dabbling around with many ideas. And when eventually got an opportunity to build Arogya Setu, the whole health as an ecosystem opened up in front of my eyes, that how less have happened in health today. Like if you look at it, and I saw in that spirit, my father, who's a diabetic, he basically notes down the values of his glucose in a piece of paper in a diary, and then share it with the doctor. A lot of prescriptions today are created just on a piece of paper. I funnily say that it's very easy to find out a date today by swiping left or right on Tinder or maybe Bumble, but it's very difficult to find out a person who can donate a blood O positive or a B positive if you are in a real need, right? So all of these problems are there today because there's no digitization practically on health, and there are multiple silos that has created. So that practically started the whole thought process of building for health tech. We are a horizontal health tech company. The idea is to be the patient health record system and give an experience to the doctors where they can use our health record system to know their patients better and work on the EMR that we have created to digitize their practice. So far, very good. We've reached 2 crore Indians, more than 25 lakh people have downloaded the app, more than 2,000 doctors currently work with us. So yeah, so far so good, Alok. It's interesting. Health is like a new thing for me, so learning.
All right, thanks. That's actually impressive in such a short time what you've achieved. But coming back to your part is that you consider yourself a developer, a techie, right? I know that you've spent almost a couple of decades building technology elsewhere, but health tech is relatively new for you, right? The learning curve definitely is steep. But tell me, as a techie, how has it been? And then what are the challenges you think you have faced, or what's different for you? Primarily as a tech leader, as a techie in this domain.
Yeah. So first of all, you made me look pretty old by saying couple of decades. So maybe 1.5 decade is what I spent time in doing tech. But yeah, on a different note, see, tech today has solved for many domains. Like if you look at horizontals, we've got food. Lots of food startups, a lot of digitization there. There's a lot of work that has happened on payments. Look at UPI, what it has done. Now there is, I don't know since when I have stopped keeping cash in my wallet, right? But if you look at health, still it's all scratching the surface at an individual level. Obviously, there are machineries that are solving, technology solving for X-rays or MRIs and so forth. But eventually it all comes down to when an individual, they have to carry a large booklet. When a doctor is looking at your reports, it's practically all offline. I say that, I look at the revenue graphs or the performance graphs, nice visualized on computer screen. but as important vitals such as your hemoglobin levels or your iron levels is what a doctor sees on a piece of paper. He can't draw a visualization charts around it, right? It's because there's no digitization of all of this information. From a domain perspective, why this has not happened till now is, I think, it's a very different problem and a very hard problem to solve. So what is different in this domain is the data that we collect or the data that is available is unstructured, and which is there in practically everywhere. But structuring that data is a very hard problem because that structure is very, very complex. So I'll give you an example. When you do a credit or a debit transaction, it's practically 5 or 6 columns in a table where you would do a double entry, right? And you are done with that. And then you can visualize all kind of stuffs. That's like your primary transaction table. Then you add properties, you add more columns to it. But when you look at medical science, every single vital and the way that vital is represented in your body with its units, with its catalyst, with the kind of effect that it has done in your body, and the kind of diagnosis that it is responsible for or important for showing certain symptoms, is all multiple variables coming together. And that complex nature of the underlying data is what is a very interesting and a difficult part in health tech. There are large companies, they are trying to solve it, and they have done to quite an extent, like Epic Systems in the US, and EMR that understands Spire as a system. There's a team called Commure. They also understands the core health technology. So that's our North Star. So we want to build a stack that understand health as it is, as it needs to be understood, and not like just as a table, column and rows. We want to know about what does fever mean, how fever means that it will induce high temperature and so on and so forth, right? And paracetamol means that it can reduce pain and so on and so forth. So this relationships and the nature of data is something that I figured out that it's super complex in health tech.
All right. So thanks for sharing that. And I want to talk about data because you mentioned about data a lot. I'll come to that. But before that, given your background in travel industry, let's say, if I want to draw parallels, and if I particularly ask you to pinpoint that, what are some of the changes while looking at the systems or while working on building the tech stack or building the systems here, which you kind of were slightly surprised to, or you have learned, what will those be if I have to ask you to pinpoint and draw parallels?
Yeah, see, if I had to draw a parallel in case of travel, it was a very simple, the data and the structure of data was very simple. Like you have to go from point A to point B, or you have to stay in point A. And then the standardization is also towards that, cities, states, all of that. That was the domain knowledge, right? We created a graph in travel. We used to call it like a graph of all kinds of hotels and cities and destination. And that graph basically is such that it can give you information back that, hey, you want to stay in this particular location. This location is in this place. Around this is these many places of interest and so on and so forth, right? So that was a graph. Now you scale that graph to say 20x. So you will get a graph of healthcare related data. And that is what, if I have to draw parallels from what we've done in Go Ivibo Travel to what we've done in health tech, what we are doing in health tech. And it's not only about just the scale of the data as such, the associations itself is far more. Like the hierarchy in case of travel is like state, city, hyperlocation, then area, pin code, maybe then a hotel, and then the relationships between two cities. Here there are drugs, then there is diagnosis, then there are symptoms, then there are lab investigations, And all of that are so interlinked to each other and many other factors that eventually creating a graph of this and figuring out the right kind of a health related information out of it is a little more complex than when it is compared to travel.
Correct, correct. So let's talk about data now. Probably the most important aspect of everything you're building in the health tech. Super sensitive. I believe that fintech data is sensitive, but when it comes to health tech, it's probably another level of sensitivity you're dealing with, which means that data privacy becomes a very, very important aspect of whatever you are working on and the security. How to ensure that you are not making any mistakes so that it doesn't come back at later stage and bite you, because the thing is that while you're working it might be fine right now, but if it's compromised or if there's some loopholes, then it's going to create big issues at scale later on. So how to kind of look into it and make sure that you're taking the right decisions?
Yeah. See, Alok, I am a fundamental believer that privacy security has to be baked into the architecture of your solution, right? Or else it won't scale ever. For example, when we look at products such as WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal for that matter, the architecture itself is end-to-end encrypted, right? So I can't actually fish around through the messages because technically the whole system is derived in that way. In health, we definitely, and it is not the value proposition is not an end-to-end encryption, but with health data, you can always basically go down the path of an absolute anonymization. And that is where we are basically putting all our bets on, that this privacy of an individual is maintained by an absolute anonymity. And that anonymity can only be given away by a user to another user, and it could be your healthcare provider. For example, you have a medical report. As long as you don't give a consent that your identity associated with this medical report has to be provided to this healthcare provider, it will not be, your identity is always basically kept outside of this medically relevant information. So that is how, that is what we see as an architectural decision that is driving us towards that path of a private and secure repository. Obviously, there are many things that you have to do to make your system robust and secure. For example, at ACA, what we do is we continuously go ahead and get ourselves penetration tested. And not only from internal people, but from external agencies, and get certificates of authorization and certificates of authentication of that. And there are 3 agencies. These are independent agencies. One is recommended by Google. Another is recommended by certain, and certain certification is important for working with government if you want to do COVID certificates or health ID creation and all. And then there's another one which we have deployed apart from our internal processes. So we do ensure that there are like at least 3 external partners. They are doing all kinds of due diligence on the way we have structured. But coming back to health data, I think one has to always think about what would be my architecture so that I myself am not able to access the data without even the consent of an individual who's building it, right? And to secure, you have to make sure that you get validations from outside. If you are, unless and until you get a validation from outside, which is outside agencies, it's more very intrinsic, and you might end up doing mistakes.
Got it. Makes sense. Next, moving on to the side of innovation and also regulations. So highly regulated sector, health tech, for obvious reasons, because it's something which the government is involved. and is supposed to be involved a lot in. But at the same time, it's also highly regulated. And sometimes a lot of these regulatory framework and these regulations are seen as, that they're curbing the innovation in the domain, or they're kind of inhibiting those innovations. And primarily because also while building systems to deal with these, sometimes as a developer, as a techie, you get frustrated also. So how do you deal with these? First question. And second is that, do you actually think that the pace of innovation does get impacted by it? Of course, it's for greater good. We all understand that. But does it have, do you acknowledge that?
No, so you actually answered my question in the last bit of, you answered your question yourself, which is of greater good. So see, we see regulations in health, and health is a pretty sensitive subject, right? As for greater good, obviously there are trade-offs that one has to take, and there are trade-offs with everything. So because this is sensitive, there is a trade-off that at times the innovation might get delayed because of the regulation. But if you don't have the regulation, the repercussions is far more severe, right? So I actually believe that it's good that the industry is regulated and that regulations are helping in driving. I'll give you an example. There is a regulation that a doctor cannot market a product. It's very, very important. Look at it. And doctors are someone that we trust. If today a doctor or a set of doctors starts basically promoting or marketing a specific type of drug or a specific type of test, right? It will suddenly, and for some kind of a benefits, that might not be the right thing to do, because it can be used for a very, very different purposes. So it's good in that ways. But yes, there is a loss of innovation there. If there are certain good use cases that you can build around it, it will take a long-winded process and many different things to solve for that. Another very good example on health insurance. As a person grows old, you have to ensure that you give him the health insurance policy. You cannot say that today I'm giving you a policy because you are 35-year-old, but when you are 40, I will basically not give you that policy because there is a higher chance of you getting ill, right? So these regulations are for greater good, but you are absolutely right. They at times do curb innovation, but I feel that fundamentally that's a trade-off, and it's a good trade-off, specifically on health. If we can build frameworks around these regulations, and that is happening right now, that will allow people to innovate. I think we will see a much better delivery of services to people than just basically lifting off regulations one after the other.
All right. But do you think that, and then this question specific to your journey at EkaCare, that your tech team has come to you seemingly frustrated with, because of any of these incorporating these regulations, and you have tried to then figure out a path, to make sure that you're dealing with it in a right way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are cases where it happens that why can't we build like, and the developers are like, they just want to win the world, right? So they'll come up and say that, okay, why don't we build like an amazing sharing utility for people, or why don't we create like innovations around prescriptions in such a way that it's the sensitivity of that, and at times you feel is not is being taken away. But yeah, we have to then just make sure that we go back to the drawing board and say, what will it affect and how will it affect? And it is not always regulatory, Alok. It's not necessarily that because of regulatory issues we end up not doing it, but a lot of times because of the sensitivity of the health data itself, we don't take certain calls that, okay, this we should not do. For example, a very simple call at Eka. We don't believe in sort of the way reviews and ratings works in general hotels world, right? We don't believe that that is something which is right when it comes to doctors, right? And it's a very it's an innovation, right? Like at Go IBO, we were the largest reviews and ratings engine in the country till now on hotels. But when and hotels is very objective experience, right? Objective experiences: clean linen, yes; clean bathroom, yes; connectivity, yeah, no, right? You can do it. When it comes to doctor, it is not about it is about what kind of information you share with doctor, and when did you come to that doctor in the journey so that your output is better, right? And it's a lot of experience. So I always say that there is no best pediatrician in Bangalore. There is best pediatrician for Vikalp. There is a best pediatrician for Alok. There is a best ortho for Deepak, and so on and so forth. So that innovation we can do. There is no regulation that can stop us in creating these kind of innovations, but we don't do it because we necessarily feel that it's not a justice to the ecosystem by the virtue of creating these best pages or like taking reviews where there is a subjectivity involved. So yeah, we are sensitive about this. So regulations, yes, but there are times that we have taken a calls that we will basically not do this because this is not sensitive enough to the health domain.
Fair enough, fair enough. But here comes another question, that eventually it ends up in a situation where relatively, as compared to other sectors, you're not building such very cool products or designing very cool systems. Now, again, that's a very big incentive for a lot of young developers, right? Because and hiring talent, tech talent has been the biggest challenge of, I think, all the technology companies. And now more and more people are talking about it over the last 5-6 years. I am seeing personally, you would have noticed, right? Bangalore has hoardings of not Hotstar, but tech.hotstars. I think jobs.tech.hotstar.com. Right? Similarly, there are a lot of other
BMW
companies.
bikes and everything. Yeah.
Yes. So, so how do you then make sure that you are actually able to still hire talent, right, and then kind of keep them motivated? And of course, part of the answer will be, I'm pretty sure, that you get the people who are aligned in the way. But
yes,
that's not the only thing, right? There are other.
Yeah. No, you're see, one is obviously the people who are aligned, and I'm not going there as like a regular. But yeah, but if you look at it from and you hit the nail on the dot, we are not building the coolest of the stuff, right? But we are building the hard stuff. So there is one is cool stuff, right? Where like a lot of cool stuff is happening. Health is hard technically to build, and developers feel challenged. For example, when you go to our Android app, say, there is a way in which you can get your pulse, like heartbeat, monitored using your camera. It is a paper that has been published many times. Your Apple Watch basically uses exactly the same technology. When we do it, all of these at Ekacare, these are hard problems, obviously not the coolest of problems. And we go and work with hospitals that, okay, let's do it with the patients. Let's derive this information from there so that we can build something that is reliable. Now, when you give a hard problem to developer that challenges them, definitely you will see a deeper sense of motivation. It is very simple, like, and one of my favorite part of the interviews is problem solving. So it's nothing to do with programming. It is basically give a puzzle, a hard puzzle. And you will know from a good developer that they would enjoy solving this puzzle, right? So that is one that works in our favor. Whatever we are doing, and I'm a developer, I can say, I mean, from all the problems that I have seen, solving for health as a right tech ecosystem is hard. And I think that is why fundamentally this is not being solved at a horizontal level. So that works for us. Second, Alo, what I have seen is we are not doing a lot of cool stuff maybe, but we are doing stuff that every person gets related to, or every person relates to in their everyday life, or if not everyday life, in their life. Like, so for example, I get related to my father who's a diabetic, and the way he basically stores. And when I look at him and when I look at his diabetes value, I don't want it to be cool. I want it to be like derived in such a way that it helps him for a better health outcome, right? Similarly, other developers, when they look at from their perspective or their family's perspective, they start relating to this. And they start relating to this almost immediately. And then there is this motivation that comes intrinsically that, okay, this is something that solves for me. And more importantly, I have seen the difference between health as a domain and the other domain is the gratification of doing something or building something is by seeing others using it, right? Here, the gratification is by myself, or I'm using it. And I'm taking my family also to use it. And that is a very different level of motivation. So that's pretty interesting in what we are seeing, at least in health as a domain.
Got it, got it. Picking on the second part of your answer, which was that you can relate to what you're building, right?
Yeah.
Seeing around it. There's something which you build, which everyone, I think, is going to listen to this, and pretty much everyone in India can relate to, Arogya Setu.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of things happened very quickly. Of course, these were very difficult times, the situations under which this was taken and built. But you architected that, right? You had that experience. Tell me that what were your learnings from that experience, right? And what challenges did you face, and what really worked and what didn't work in that experiment?
Yeah. See, whenever I talk about all of these, it just gives me goosebumps, because I think that was a product that I definitely feel privileged to have worked on. And as a developer, building something that touches 50 million users in 13 days is just phenomenal. So if you ask me about my journey, it was, as I said, magical. Thoroughly enjoyed what we have built, and more importantly, the motivation level at that time was of very different scale between the entire team. And it was not me, I was another volunteer architect, and the entire team was there, which is people from Go Ivibo, Make My Trip, 1MG, and also NIC, helping in making it come together. So the motivation levels were very high, and I have learned a lot about how a truly motivated developer, how important and how lethal, if I have to say in those words, can be a truly motivated developer. They can just touch the sky. So that is something that I realized during that journey. And it all happened very fast, as you said. And if I have to replicate that, I don't know any way to replicate that. It was only replicated because each one of us was so deeply motivated that they wanted to make it not only successful for themselves, but successful for the country, for the people around. And it's like a time where you want to just jump in and help. So that is how it all started. So, I mean, the biggest learning was that, I mean, a motivated developer can actually just reach sky. So that is one thing. There are challenges that has happened in the journey. And the challenges are that happens in any kind of utility that government pushes. There will be naysayers. There will be people who will say that this is not right in the way it gets executed, and so on and so forth. And that actually derailed a lot of, when you wanted to do like 10 things, you will end up doing only 2 things, because there are so many nuances to it. And you are asking about innovation and health and regulation. when it comes to government, I also realized that for government to do an innovation is even more harder, because if they do innovation, they will be questioned, right? That why you did the innovation and so on and so forth. Because as I said, everything will come with a slight trade-off, and that trade-off will actually become a problem. So that was some of the challenges. But I should give it to the way government has helped in this. They were like completely supportive in making sure that whatever are the good points they come across, like open sourcing the entire code base. It was something that that has happened at a grand scale, and there's something that government not only agreed but like made it like really really big in terms of giving it out the source and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's those were some challenges. Another big challenge was whenever you do something of this scale, the security or the hackers basically come and attack you. Like how? I have not got as many attacks in the 10-12 years of Go Ivibo that we got in just 1.5 month of launching Arogya Setu. And there was many attempts, but fortunately it was all well guarded and architected in such a way that nothing get leaked out. So yeah, that was another big challenge apart from scale. I remember when our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, he announced about people to download this app. That day was like, I have not seen that kind of a, it was like you'd have hundreds of DDoS attack happening on your servers together, right? So handling that at scale was a challenge, but eventually we were able to overcome that. So yeah, these are some of the interesting points that we've learned in that journey.
Right. So continuing with this part of the government side of the things, you recently wrote an article mentioning about ABHA, right, which is Ayushman Bharat health accounts, right?
Yes.
So that's something which is coming along well. So tell me that how do innovations like these, and especially if I talk about ABHA, is going to help, and if it will, the current health tech ecosystem from the technology perspective and the health tech startups as well. And then what does overall future in terms of technology innovation, near future looks like? Because look, again, pace of innovation, something here has been questionable, like we discussed, right? Because I remember when I was in college, there was, this is almost like 15 years ago, I'm talking about that, telemedicine was a concept then people were experimenting with, and expectations were that probably by 2010-11 you'll have telemedicine as the main mode of communicating with the doctors, and just but it, until pandemic, it really didn't pick up that well and became that universal in nature. So how will the entire innovation ecosystem change with this? And then let's talk about ABHA first, and how will it impact the health tech?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take the later part first, and then I'll talk about ABHA, which is on the innovation. And as you rightly mentioned, that telemedicine was something that people were dabbling around for so many years. And similarly, smartphones was something that the people were dabbling around for since so many years. But then iPhone just changed the whole paradigm. So I have always fundamentally believed, and that is something is written on the wall. It's not only about innovation, it's about timing. And that timing for health is now, is what we fundamentally believe. And that is why you are seeing a lot of these changes and large companies getting built, be it Teladoc in the US, or there is telemedicine suddenly basically becoming so big, and Babylon in the UK, K-Health in the US, and so on and so forth. So the timing is now. And should I thank COVID or not thank COVID? I don't know, right? I mean, it's not something to be proud of what has happened, or to rejoice what has happened. But somehow that timing has happened, or the timing has come to this because of all of these changes that has happened in the global ecosystem. So that's why we see that there is like a full-blown innovation that will start happening now on telemedicine to patient health record and so on and so forth. Coming to how ABHA and what ABHA is and how it will fuel, there are so many online articles, but I'm not going to go into detail of that. But if you look at how I tell people, create a parallel of ABHA to UPI. The way UPI has changed the way you do payments today. India was not a digital payments country pre-UPI. The penetrations of credit card, the people using online mediums for payments was very, very low. But suddenly UPI has changed that. And there are ecosystem changes such as demonetization, all of that has, and private players have fueled it. Same is what is happening today. ABHA is an equivalent of UPI sort of a thing from health standpoint, where these health identifiers, which is ABHA, the health account that each one of us will have, will fuel the innovations that will be driven by the private players on this rails that government is building. Like the way government has built NPCI, government is building a rails of unified health interface, and that rails leveraging ABHA as a concept will allow multitudes of innovation and new business models getting created on health. And this will be a big catalyst in our country. See, health ecosystem, the timing is right globally, but ABHA will act as a big catalyst to spur this even further and make it like a household. I mean, the digital health will be a household thing in coming future. That's how we see it. And yeah, if there's any specifics, maybe I can answer. But yeah, it's too deep to understand as well.
So I think we just wanted to touch upon it, and probably we'll have another session entirely on ABHA. I think that's totally worth it.
Yeah.
The last question, and that's because if you're talking about technology today, it's almost a sin to not talk about Web3. So data and constraints and trust. I mean, so data and trust are two things which are very close to health tech. And this is something which also forms the fundamentals of the Web3 decentralized world. So how do you think, and what all can be leveraged from Web3, from the blockchain industry, in the health tech industry, in your opinion? What kind of, or at least what parts of health tech do you think will get impacted in a positive way with the Web3 being, adopted at fast pace?
Yeah. Now, see, I'm a big proponent of what is happening on Web3, more decentralized. I mean, I fundamentally at times say that this is something like an internet, right? Like the way internet became part of practically every single architecture. And it's not internet, it's networking became part of every single architecture, and internet is a use case of networking. Similarly, Web3 at a protocol level will basically become a fundamental architecture for things in every industry, be it fintech, be it health tech. And what I believe is that what Web3 will solve at a grand level is interoperable consents and trust in health sector specifically, because health is a lot about interoperability. Actually, every industry is about that, and the similar constructs are there in health as well. So I believe that a lot of these interoperable solutions will be built on Web3 as a stack, so that can bake in the intrinsic trust into the technology and the protocol level itself. That would be my take on Web3 and health as a union.
All right. I think that should be it from my side then. Vikalp, thanks for taking our time, and lovely to have this conversation with you on building for health tech in India. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Alok. It's always pleasure having these conversations, and you proved questions that actually ends up making me think as well. So which is something that I really enjoy. Thank you so much for having me.